Okay, thank you so much for coming. I know on a Friday afternoon, I really appreciate everybody being here. Excuse me, last year I promised that every House Democrat would play an active role in decision-making. We empowered chairs and I engaged the caucus. I think we really achieved a lot of great things last year that we did on our blueprint for Connecticut. I think that in 2006 we can repeat that, and it will be just as successful as we did in '05. In a follow-up to last year's blueprint, we're calling our agenda Breaking Ground in 2006 with a state budget that is in pretty good shape. We have an opportunity to show some real vision and invest in long-term, not bold, Ken, health care, issues of children, job creation, tax relief. Those are some of the goals that our caucus, again, that's what they've been hearing from their constituents. The rank and file taught to the leadership, and this is our caucus, our agenda for the state of Connecticut. These are the goals we've set our sights on. Specifically, our priorities include, number one, healthy kids and workers. Healthcare was absolutely off the charts. House Democrats will continue the fight for affordable and accessible health care. As we all know, too many of our residents are one serious accident or illness away from bankruptcy, and good coverage remains far too elusive for far too many people. Number two, tax relief. We need to show businesses that we are willing to take steps to help them compete. By cutting taxes, we can send a powerful message about doing business in Connecticut. Residents are clamoring for real property tax reform, not a shift of tax dollars. It's time we listened and we do something about it. Number three, improving our children's future. Investment in education means that we prepare children to compete in a highly competitive global economy. Support for after-school programs is just one way we can reinforce the behaviors and skills kids need to be successful. Jobs and economic growth. Let me get this over here. Connecticut, as we all know, is 50th in job creation. We are absolutely dead last. If we are serious about economic development, we need to be strategic and proactive. States that think outside the box, like our proposals to offer tax incentives to bring the film and media industries to Connecticut, are the ones who will get ahead. Number five, fighting high energy costs. Paper likes to stick together, Chris.
Get that gum stick.
Despite our very mild winter, and we've been extremely lucky, the spiraling cost of energy is squeezing wallets and hurting bottom lines. We should scrutinize Connecticut's rate structure for flaws, fix them, and then explore less costly alternatives to gasoline. 6, solving transportation. We need to stop paying lip service to our transportation problems in Connecticut, and we need to stop the practice of launching single projects and calling that reform. The Transportation Strategy Board vision for this state has been ignored since 2003 and should be implemented. And basically fully funded this year. No more excuses. Ultimately, our constituents will judge us by results and how we made the state a better place to work and live. The Democrats are laying out an ambitious agenda, one that takes on tough issues and offers our shared vision for solutions. I am extremely excited about the session. I have no doubt that we will meet and exceed expectations like we did last year. At this point, I'd like to have our majority come up and say a few words. Chris Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good to see you.
Thank you, bud.
Got my tea. Majority leader, I should say.
Like myself as a majority, so that's good. Good afternoon, everyone. I look forward to a new year and continue the success of the caucus we had before. Last year, we stuck together. We got things done. We got it done well, and we got it done on time. We made progress for working for the best interest of Connecticut. This year, we're talking about a healthy and strong Connecticut and a healthy and strong economy. Healthy and strong Connecticut, affordable health care for individuals and businesses, healthy and strong economy, fair energy costs, healthy and strong Connecticut, well-trained, educated workforce, healthy and strong Connecticut, efficient transportation system, and fair tax policies. What the Speaker showed you is a challenging agenda. Last year's agenda around this time was equally challenging. We met that challenge, and we enacted historic legislation. I have the same great caucus behind me. I expect the same great results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think I'll have our Appropriations Chair come up and say a few words. Aren't you happy? Denise Merrill.
Thank you. Proud to be part of our caucus. I think we've enjoyed great success. We're now in the process of looking over the governor's proposed budget. I see many areas of common ground, and I see some ways that we can make improvements on the budget as presented. But I think we will, again this year, be successful at getting a budget which we can agree on and all get out on time. Thanks.
Hey, nice. Key word, time. And last but not least, our Finance Chairman, Cam Staples.
Thank you, and I'll try to be even shorter than Denise and say that we've got our challenges too on the tax side. I think we've got to be aware of the fiscal situation we find ourselves in. We have a one-year surplus and then several years of deficits ahead of us that OPM projects, and so any large tax cuts have to be viewed in that context. We don't want to be standing here a year from now facing $1 billion deficit because we were too eager to cut taxes in an election year. That said, I think there are some investments that we can make that are very sensible. We are last in job growth, as the Speaker said, and we will look very carefully at some targeted incentives to grow industries that we think have a real future here. The film industry is poised through its current presence and its expanding presence to be possibly a new sector of the Connecticut economy that we should look very carefully at trying to provide inducements for. Certainly on other areas of job creation, the governor has put some incentives on the table that I think we'll take a close look at. But finally, an issue that we've talked about for years and we have succeeded in getting a property tax credit enacted to address is the increasing burden of property taxes. A program review study conducted this year reinforced what we already know, which is that our tax burden in every other area of taxation is actually quite mild or light compared to national trends. We have a low income tax, a corporate tax that is roughly in the middle of the states, and a sales tax that is roughly in the middle to the lower part of the states. But our property tax is a crushing burden on homeowners and on businesses. We will look very closely at that program review study. We are developing legislation that we think will create some real discussion around significant property tax reform, reducing the size and the scope, perhaps, of municipal governments and services to ultimately to assist them in lowering their mill rates. And I think at the end of this process, we should have a tax package and a budget that will improve the lot of Connecticut citizens. So I look forward to working with my leadership and the members of the Finance Committee to make that happen. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go right to questions and answers. My Finance Chair and Appropriations Chair, please come by me. Come over here, Mr. Majority Leader. Okay. Listen, I want to first thank all the press for being here on a Friday afternoon. When we looked at my calendar, I am booked already to mid-March, and this is the only place we could squeeze this in, so I apologize. I know Friday is a tough day, but thank you all for coming. I'm very pleased. So now you can beat me up. Go ahead, Paul.
Are you guys talking about? What do you say here? You're pledging. We are pledging to begin to consider proposals that address the property taxes.
I'll let Cam
Have you guys
give
been pledging that since I don't know when?
I will let my Finance Chair give you that answer.
Yeah, before that.
That was a good song, I think, too, Paul, if I remember.
Well, we're going to resist the temptation for a symbolic proposal that would captivate you today but won't play out effectively tomorrow. And I think that unfortunately is the heavy lifting you have to do when you really want to reform the property tax system. And I'll give you a few pieces of it, but I think you'll see it better when the legislation is drafted. One of the core ideas of program review is to encourage more regional services. One of the greatest burdens on municipalities is that they all replicate the same administrative structure to provide basic services. Any state with regional governments don't do that. We're going to try to encourage through either revenue intercepts or grants to have regions plan together and try to take some local services off the backs of municipalities and thereby save considerable sums in administration. Another issue will be the issue of the growing disparity between revaluations when you have in one community properties that are increasing extraordinarily high, whether it's shoreline communities or cities, and properties that are increasing at lower rates. We're looking at proposals that might limit the amount of property tax increase that can occur on any piece of property in a town that has had a revaluation and has 50% or 75% growth on some of its homes. And finally, we'll look at ideas of removing, like we did with general assistance, removing substantial services and burdens from municipalities and assuming them at the state level in a way that might allow us to create efficiencies and, again, reduce the burden on local governments. These are some of fairly big ideas that I think we'll be exploring in greater detail and look for a lot of feedback on, but I think if you're really looking for property tax relief, it's not just about more state aid, it's about shrinking the size of municipal government and taking some of the large pressures off of towns that they're facing and that they can't have any real control over. That program review guided us in that direction, and I think during the course of several hearings we're looking at taking the Finance Committee around the state to conduct hearings, which has not been done in quite a long time, to hear from people about these ideas and hopefully have some real good proposals to bring back to the process here and develop them and enact some of them. Well, we've got to raise bills. We're starting to raise them next week, and we're going to fully draft them over the following week, and then we'll have hearings in March, and our JF deadline is early April.
Is it fair to say that there really isn't that much support among your caucus to raise car tax proposals?
Sorry.
Car tax. You know, we have not caucused that position yet, so I'm not going to speak. I don't know what the caucus feels about it. I've had some input from a few folks. I know one thing, as we get some, this is not a complete analysis, but there's been some analysis on that, that right now it looks like there's more losers than winners when it comes to municipalities. We've seen a few towns already step up and said that they don't support it because they're losing revenue. And I think, you know, that as far as we're concerned, the car tax, as far as I'm concerned, I should say, I'm not going to speak for my caucus, is that the car tax certainly is starting to lose air out of its tire. It doesn't seem to be grasping too much out there, and you know, there were reasons why before we've had this discussion before. It's kind of a retread from old ideas. This isn't something that's been new.
You're doing well.
Where's my drummer when I need one? But in reality, we're going to have these discussions. In reality, if it does work out that there's a plan out there that we can make, that our constituents will certainly make out that it's not just a tax shift and that municipalities are okay, that they're not just going to end up losing money and then also raising taxes, then we'll embrace it. But right now, I think the jury's out on a final decision from our caucus. I think we want, as what Cam was saying, we're looking for something that's more substantial and sustainable. And one thing we all have to remember, you know, the legislature promised 100% funding in ECS. We promised 100% funding in pilot. We all know that. And municipalities, leaders know, and when I was an alderman, I remember the days of they just don't believe it anymore. So when Bob Ward gets up and says this is forever, how long is forever? Till the election's over? And that's what we have to make sure people understand back home. Yes, Paul.
We heard some concerns from some advocates this morning about campaign finance reform, as well as some suggestions for revising the law that you guys passed last year. What's your sense of what's going to be happening on the
Well, I got
campaign
my
finance
committee
reform?
chair here, Mr. Caruso.
Well, we spoke to Mr. Caruso, so I'd like to hear what
Well, what would you
have
like
to
me to
say.
say? He's my chairman, though, Paul.
Well, you're the speaker, and
Well,
nothing's going to
Paul-
happen without
No,
your
that's
okay.
not true. That's not the way we work things around here
Well-
anymore. Last year, if you remember, we empowered our chairman. Our chairman had the power to make these decisions. Listen, as you know, my background on this issue before, I was not a big fan of campaign finance reform. My vote was green. I supported my chairman. The caucus supported him, and he will make, and his committee will make those decisions, and the caucus will make final decisions on any changes.
Certainly, you have to have some ideas of what you'd like to
I
see done.
No, I don't. That's
You don't
all
have any ideas
No,
about what-
I'll take the direction from my chairman.
You're not even thinking about it?
Paul, I mean, quite frankly, Paul, I tell you, you know me for a long time. There are issues that I have passion for, and there are issues that I sometimes don't have the same passion of others in my caucus. I've always spoken freely about that. Mr. Caruso and many of my caucus members have been looking for campaign finance reform for years. For someone like me to go up there and start suggesting what should be done on campaign finance reform when I have never been a big fan of this, I think is wrong to do to my chairman and wrong to do to my caucus. I've empowered him for a reason. He's going to come up with decisions. The caucus is going to debate them. And if it comes out on the floor for changes, we will support those changes. Just being honest.
On these film incentives, this sheet says that the incentives should be more competitive than Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New York. So that means that these would be bigger breaks than people are currently getting now in Rhode Island.
Hopefully, there have been well, breaks is one thing. I hope there are bigger incentives to create an industry here is equal, if not to surpass what we've done with tourism in the early 90s. We really believe we have an advantage because we believe we have that talent in our state. And Cam Staples and the Finance Committee, I have all the faith in the world that they will develop a package that is good for the taxpayers and will create an industry here and make it grow and be something that 10 years from now we're going to be proud that we made the decision.
And what form is that going to take? Is that going to be,
Cam,
you know,
Cam has some ideas, Ted.
What form, I'm sorry, what form will what take?
what form would the incentives take? Are we talking about grants, tax breaks? What's the best way to compete with those states?
Well, we had a proposal a few weeks ago at a press event announcing what the sort of menu of options were based on what Rhode Island has done, Massachusetts, Louisiana, and other states that have enacted incentives. And I think what we're trying to do now is meet with people in Connecticut who actually are engaged in the industry and try to understand what makes Connecticut unique. Our proximity to New York is certainly something that we have as an advantage over other states, particularly states like Louisiana. And I think we're going to look at making a very smart investment where we're playing to our strengths, where we're trying to do things that make ourselves more attractive, not just on a tax basis, but also in terms of providing access to filmmakers to key sites in Connecticut. We've been told that it's very difficult for a filmmaker who wants to use Gillette Castle or wants to use some other state or private facility to actually gain access. So I think we'll cover a range of things, but we're looking to, I think as the speaker said, not just attract filmmakers who come through for a few days, shoot the film, and leave, but help build an infrastructure and an industry that will be sustained over time. So our package may look a little different than the other states when we're done.
Any other questions? Really?
Can I ask which committee would take that up, that idea about getting better access to Gillette Castle and places like that?
I'm sorry, what's your question about
Which
that?
committee would probably take that up? Would that be a GAE thing?
It was raised by
Or
a couple
DEP maybe?
of individuals, and I have to think about it. But we're going to meet with a lot of the individuals who reside here. And another thing Connecticut has is we have a lot of people, not just actors, but producers and others, because of our proximity to New York, who actually reside in Connecticut, and I think can give us some better ideas about what specifically we can do to be more helpful when someone comes into the state. And I know we have a film office, and I know that's a role they already play, but perhaps it's something we need to give them more tools with and give them a higher profile so that when they want to assist someone in using facilities in Connecticut, they don't have to spend weeks cutting through red tape to do that.
No other questions? Really? Wow. Well, thank you very much for coming. Have a great 3-day weekend, everybody. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you, caucus.